I'm the son of a black man from Kenya and a white woman from Kansas. I am married to a black American who carries within her the blood of slaves and slave owners. For as long as I live, I will never forget that in no other country on earth is my story even possible.
Most of us know this man's story and about the struggles in the streets and in the courts that made it possible.
All in favor, let it be known by standing on your
But what many of us don't know is what came before all of this.
People need to understand we have come a long way. And these young folks don't know what we came through.
For 100 years after the Civil War, millions of black Americans lived lives of nobility, defiance, hope, shame, and inspiration.
Regrets? None. I think those experiences in America, it really strengthened me.
Yeah, I remember those days. You would feel bad, but it wasn't nothing you could do about it. It didn't mean nothing to be a man.
There were times of despair and times that you would question your faith, but I never lost hope.
Yes, I got to a point whereby I thought it was hopeless from time to time, but I never gave up because I felt that a better day was coming.
Theirs are the stories we don't know, but we should, because they are how we got here. And this is what it was like. The story of the black experience in America begins with an ending, the end of slavery, made official by the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. But it would take more than words on paper to deliver America's slaves from bondage to real freedom. It's 1865 in Big Spring, Tennessee. Just 4 months after the end of the Civil War. Without slavery, there's no more free labor, and the harvest is coming in. So some white plantation owners asked men they once owned to come back to work. This time for pay, very little pay. This is how one former slave responds.
Dear sir, I got your letter. I thought the Yankees would have hung you, and I'm glad you're still living. Mandy and I are doing tolerably well here in Ohio. I get $25 a month, and we are kindly treated. Mandy says she would be afraid to go back without some proof that you will treat us justly and kindly. So we have concluded to test your sincerity by asking you to send us our wages for the time we served you. At 25 years for me and 20 years for Mandy, by my calculations, our earnings would amount to $11,680. P.S. Say howdy to George Carter and thank him for taking the pistol from you when you were shooting at me. From your old servant, Jordan Anderson.
Jordan Anderson would spend the remaining 40 years of his life in Dayton, Ohio. He never returns to the South. Others never leave.
You just go ahead and talk away there. My name is Fountain Hughes.
I am 101 years old.
This is an audio recording of a former slave. He was born in Virginia in 1848. Just after an educated slave there organized a bloody rebellion against his master. After that, it was illegal to teach a slave to read in the state of Virginia.
After freedom, you know, colored people didn't have nothing. We didn't have nowhere to go. Didn't have no home. We just turned out like a lot of cattle in the pasture. Just like a lot of wild people. And we didn't know nothing. Wasn't no school. Didn't like look at no book. So we had worse than dogs we got it now. Oh, they had a tough time. But colored people is free. Ought to be awful thankful. I'm thankful to the Lord.
After freedom, millions of former slaves like Fountain Hughes stay on. In white people's homes and on their farms, doing much of the same work they did as slaves. And although constitutional amendments give them citizenship and a right to vote, for most, life continues to look a lot like it did before freedom, and it will stay that way for generations. These images were recorded in Mississippi nearly a century after the Civil War.
What was the question?
Could you describe how it was growing up?
Yeah, I can describe it. We were living on the farm, out there in the country. Chopping cotton, plowing a mule, you know, sharecropper. And that white man, he was the boss of everything. It wasn't complete slavery, but it wasn't much different at that time. And we made it through by the help of God, that's all.
Drew me anywhere, Lord, in that old field. Drew me anywhere, Lord, in that old field. Don't care.
And I baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
For 3 centuries, faith had seen people through slavery. Now, we needed to see us through freedom. It's June 19th, 1900 in Austin, Texas. These photos are the oldest known pictures of Austin's annual Juneteenth celebration, commemorating the day in 1865 that slavery ended and freedom began in Texas. And for Texans like Dora Abney, it's like a Black 4th of July.
Red represented the blood that was shed during slavery. You had red pop, red velvet cake, ice cream, and barbecued ribs. It was a joyful thing.
The Juneteenth tradition will spread from Texas to Black communities in Arkansas, California, Louisiana, and Oklahoma, where this footage was shot. 6,000 former slaves settled here after the Civil War. And now there are more all-Black towns in Oklahoma than anywhere else in the country. Here, the Davis family, the Walkers, and the Murdochs are living the American dream decades before that phrase would even exist.
Langston City is a Negro city, and we are proud of that fact. We have a good society, church privileges, school privileges, and last but not least, the enjoyment of every right every other man enjoys under the Constitution. What more do you want?
All black towns like these inspire pride. And when the country goes to war in 1917, nearly 20,000 young black men from Oklahoma will serve. One week after the U.S. enters the War Department's quota for black volunteers is already filled by people like 17-year-old Edward Nichols of Minnesota, who lies about his age to enlist.
Mr. Nichols, what type of unit were you in?
I was in the surrogated unit, training in Camp Hill, Virginia. And this was the thing I remember so well. When the question come up as to whether they should arm the black troops, the Southern senator said, well, you can give them the guns, but who's going to take them away from them? So we were trained with the wooden guns. Yeah.
But some black units see combat with real guns. These men are the 369th Infantry Regiment from Harlem. They will spend 191 days under continuous fire, more than any other unit, black or white. They never lose a foot of ground and never have a man taken prisoner. The French will later erect monuments in their honor. And when they return home in 1919, they hope to enjoy the full rights of American democracy. But what they'll find instead are angry white people, frustrated that there aren't enough jobs or housing to go around.
I remember after the war, I come to Duluth. The mob said they were going to run all the niggers out of town. By the daybreak, they lynched 3.
It happens in Duluth, Minnesota, and in 24 other cities and towns across the country. There had been racial violence before, but this time, black citizens, many of them veterans, pick up their guns and defend themselves against the white mobs.
We have been through the war and given everything, even our lives. And now we are going to stop being beat up.
The defiance of America's black population after the war surprises nearly everyone, and people all over the world take notice.
The disorders now reported are just the beginning. If the Negroes can find a leader, we may yet experience all sorts of things. Perhaps someday, even a black president.
Oklahoma, 1925. A black Baptist minister shot this film only a short time after whites in Tulsa attacked a thriving black community there and burned it to the ground. Many black families like these lost everything they had built. With hard work and faith, they will build new lives in new communities, where they will raise children and grandchildren, some of whom will help elect the first black president. that day is nearly 9 decades away. Right now, it's 1925, and things will get a whole lot worse before they get better. It's 1925. And New York City is now the biggest city in the world. A building boom means you can watch skyscrapers go up practically overnight, from the Battery to the Upper East Side. And if you head north up 7th Avenue, you might be surprised at another boom that's taking place. Because beginning around 125th Street, for the next 50 blocks up, the shoppers, the people sitting in the restaurants, coming out of the theaters, and looking out the windows are practically all black. Since before World War I, Southern Negroes have been heading north in search of better opportunities. The ones who arrive in New York quickly learn that most of the city's landlords won't rent to blacks, except in Harlem. By the late 20s, Harlem contains more Negroes per square mile than anywhere else in the world.
That was roughly the time, too, of the high point, I might say, in Harlem. In 1928, 1929, Harlem was a fantastically interesting place in those days. Harlem was really a cultural center in this town because it got to be in vogue. It got to be a fashion.
In exclusive neighborhoods like Sugar Hill and Strivers Row, there are doctors and lawyers, fine homes and restaurants. Also within Harlem's 150 blocks are as many as 140 churches, as well as drug dealers, bootleggers, prostitutes, and numbers runners. And for a young black man like Harold Slappy,
to me, this is the Garden of Eden. Hell yeah. Go to the Savoy Ballroom every Saturday. We used to save up our nickels and dimes and give it to our favorite hostess and spend the night dancing with her and trying to make love to her. We'd say, come back in 10 years when you grow up.
The nightlife was fabulous. The corner saloons, back rooms jumped. You could see anyone who was anyone in Harlem. You know, you go into places like Hacha and Bobby Henderson was playing the piano. Billie Holiday was singing. You go across Lenox Avenue. Art Tatum was playing the piano. Ethel Waters was there. The place just jumped. I remember Dickie Wells' place, Connie's Inn in Smalls, and the Cotton Club. That's when downtown came very often to Harlem.
Harlem is a place where everything taboo is easily available. And that begins to attract whites from Lower Manhattan. The ones who have a taste for the exotic and the money to spend on it. To entertain this new clientele, whites-only establishments like the Cotton Club begin to feature jungle and plantation-themed acts, along with racist stereotypes like Sambos and Mammies. Sometimes the black talent even performs in blackface.
White people began to come to Harlem in droves. Where formerly only colored people laughed and sang, now the strangers are given the best ringside tables to sit and stare at the Negroes like amusing animals in a zoo.
for whites from downtown, it's just a wild night out. But Harlem in the 1920s is exploding with black music, dance, painting, sculpture, and poetry.
This was the first time I'd seen any examples of African art. I was fascinated with them. There was this very definite consciousness and great pride. It was a Negro pride. It was the new Negro.
For generations, in the mind of America, the Negro has been something to be argued about, condemned or defended, to be kept down or in his place. But the pulse of the Negro world now beats in Harlem.
For those of us living in the white world outside of Harlem in the 1920s, things haven't changed much at all.
I'm going to take a trip in that old gospel ship. I am going far beyond the sky. I'm going to shout and sing, tell heaven's praise, till I bid this world goodbye.
Here in Indiana, white people continue with kin reunions, afternoon teas, and church socials. Many of them through the Methodist Church, the state's leading denomination. But there's one white organization that's even bigger than the Methodists, and growing.
We had no trouble until they come into Muncie. I didn't know nothing about no Ku Klux Klan or nothing. I had never heard of them before. But I heard they didn't like Negroes.
Here in Muncie, Indiana, it is said that the Klan is enrolling citizens so fast that they ran out of night games 3 times.
I remember down at the end of Lowell Street, there used to be a skating rink there. And them had their gatherings there. I could go upstairs, open my window up and look down and see all these Ku Klux Klan burning crosses. I remember some nights I'd seen them watching me.
And this is Indiana, a state that played a central role in helping slaves escape to freedom in the North. And yet, by 1925, 1 out of every 4 native-born white men here are members of the Klan. So you can only imagine what it's like in the South. The Yazoo Delta, Mississippi, in the 1920s.
Mama, have you heard? Papa's gonna buy me a mockingbird. Is that mom?
Babies here are like babies everywhere, sleeping, eating, and crying. Soon, they'll learn how to walk and talk and say please and thank you. But if they're born black, like Maurice Lucas, they'll also have to learn how to be black in Mississippi.
Well, I can remember when I was a little bitty child, there'd be a black guy hanging on a pole on south end of town. one hanging on the railroad pole on the north of town. Some white folks will lynch him. Now I understand. You black and they white.
Were there places that you couldn't go?
Oh yeah, it was common knowledge. White side and black side.
Was there something that let you know that you were going from one side to the other?
Oh yeah. The railroad track. Damn near every community in the South is a railroad track. They had colored on one side, white on the other. The railroad track, Jack.
It's not so nice to say, but you knew your place. I knew to say yes or no to a white person. And if you did it, you didn't have any, trouble.
For people like Ann Pointer, who work inside white people's homes, the rules are even more clearly defined.
If you're working in a white person's house as a maid, you got the whole house in charge. From the cooking to the buying the groceries, the cutting hair, everything. You know what I'm saying? But you dare not go in the front door. You got to go in the back door. Wait a minute. I'm gonna make your bread with my hands, and I'm good enough to serve you, but you think I ain't fit to sit beside you, but you can eat out of my hand. That's the irony in the whole thing.
Everyone, black and white, is expected to follow the rules that keep the races separated. But somehow, these boundaries keep getting crossed anyways.
Now listen, I had a cousin. He was maybe in his early teens, and that was a white girl, and they loved each other. But then, here's what happened. The white people found them together one time, and the girl told him, I love her. But the white people were mad. And so they took him out and they killed him. And left him on the railroad track.
Pray tell me what it's for. I thought I told you on yonder's hill, you need not come anymore. You need not come anymore.
It's different when white men break the rules. In fact, it happens so often, there's a name for it. In the black part of town, they call it nighttime integration.
Was that common, the white men pursuing black women?
Yeah, sure. That Caminho, see, all these white fellas, he run at these colored women's. Your daughter or your wife, every damn night. Yes, sir. Man, them white people been doing some slavery. Man, let me tell you something. You ever see real, fair, colored children? And the parents dark? That's the white man mess around.
I'm a rolling through this unfriendly world.
For blacks in the South, the way out is by train. Over time, at least 6 million would get on board. Many would never come back. But it's just a lucky minority who get to ride the rails all the way to the middle class. Ernest Bean is one of them. He shoots this footage on the job. In the 1930s and 1940s, Bean works as a Pullman porter, serving whites on railroad sleeper cars. The Pullman Company built these 5-star rolling hotels at the end of the Civil War and hired former house slaves who were experienced in taking care of white folks.
When you were hired, you had to go through routines to see how you'd react. They say, when a passenger gets on and calls you nigger, what would you do? You knew the answer you were supposed to give. It was never to tell the passenger what you were thinking. The passenger called me everything but a child of God. But I laughed it off. I didn't get insulted. You'd be surprised how proud a Pullman porter is. Pullman porters are proud, man.
It was the worst job on the train, but it was just about the best job you can get in the black community.
I love the job because I like to travel and I love the people. It meant that I can take care of my family, feed them, send them to school. The job meant a lot to me.
But at the end of the 1930s, the comfortable life Ernest Bean provides for his family back in Oakland is something most blacks can only dream of. Because even though emancipation was achieved 70 years before, America hasn't yet begun to deliver on her promise to the Negro.
The March of Time. A familiar sight, the length and breadth of Dixie is the Negro, and the shack, which is his home.
This newsreel was produced in 1939, 75 years after an amendment to the Constitution promised black Americans full citizenship. And most of us are still waiting for it.
Though here, as everywhere, the Negro finds himself in the lowest of all income levels, he and his race have made a brave struggle to better their lot.
But there are places where it's better. Even in Dixie. This is Goreen Beauty College, founded by Mrs. Gold S. Morgan Young. These are the more than 30 employees of the Union Protective Assurance Company, led by President H.D. Whalen. The owners of Stories Watch and Jewelry Repair, the founders of the Tri-State Bank. All are successful black-owned businesses in Memphis, Tennessee. And all were filmed by the Reverend L.O. Taylor of the Olivet Baptist Church. Taylor shot the footage you're seeing now as a record of Black Memphis, a place white Memphis never even saw. It's the same in other southern cities too. Atlanta, Richmond, and Birmingham. Separation of the races have created thriving, but separate, cities within cities. But soon it won't matter whether you live in the black one or the white one. Because in late 1941, our country will need us all.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin.
A Japanese bomb killed at least 5 persons and injured many others.
And separation of the races will become impossible to maintain.
A Japanese attack upon Pearl Harbor naturally would mean war.
19-year-old Ray Carter signs up with the Navy the day after Pearl Harbor.
I felt very gung-ho and very proud of myself for getting into the fray immediately. During our boot camp training, we were given these little white coats. I wondered what they were for. I soon found out that the mess attendants wore these little white coats to wait on the officers. Here I had enlisted to fight for my country, and my great contribution to the war effort was to wait on whites. It made me angrier than hell.
I don't want no sugar in my coffee. It make me feel
Some of the black men who enlist come from the North. For them, basic training is often their first experience in the South.
I wanted to ask you, so what was it like?
When I was a private in training? Well, at Fort Lee, Virginia, it was the most segregated, the most prejudiced camp maybe in the United States. The general was a Southerner, and most of the officers were Southern. The telephone operators, if they thought that your voice was Negroid, she'd insult you. Walk down the street, the white soldiers could insult you. They were harassers. They called them niggers. It was very bad. And there were many riots, race riots.
So proud that I had volunteered to fight for my country, this great democracy of ours. Here I am spoiling for a fight with the enemy. And the question I ask myself is just who the hell is the enemy?
By 1943, close to 1 in 10 enlisted men are black. All served in segregated units. But until they arrive overseas, none of them knows exactly what to expect from this war. Bill Stevens is deployed to Guadalcanal with the 93rd Infantry Division.
Whoa, baby, whoa, whoa, baby, whoa.
talking. Whoa, whoa.
93rd came ashore. But we found out that the real fighting had ended when we arrived. And so the division was split up, put to work unloading ships, under the guise of keeping us physically fit.
Whoa, Dinah, whoa, whoa, Lang Dinah, whoa, Lang Dinah, whoa.
With all the white casualties our side was sustaining, it seemed like a hell of a waste of an infantry regiment.
Most black servicemen are assigned to supply and support roles, but not all. Elvin Davison serves in the 370th Regiment of the 92nd Infantry Division.
We were informed about our battalion commander. He said, gentlemen, we are going to prove to the people that we're as good as anybody else. We're going to combat.
Davison and his men do not disappoint. They penetrate the infamous Gothic line in the Italian campaign and help to capture nearly 24,000 prisoners.
7 p.m. Eastern Wartime. Bob Tropp reporting. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the Second World War.
Officially, the military is segregated, but those rules were sometimes broken to win the war. By the end, thousands of black and white servicemen have shared not only combat, but also day-to-day routines, many of them for the first time.
Let me tell you, we did everything together. You grow up swimming together. We went to the mess and we ate together. We're playing cards together. I'm just trying to say how we got along. A white brother wasn't no different than a black brother. It was the greatest surprise I ever had in my life. It was.
But these small victories abroad don't guarantee victory at home.
My best friend while I was in the Pacific was white. We went through hell together and came back together until we passed under the Golden Gate Bridge and my buddy disappeared. I never saw him again. Disillusioned, hurt, not really. We were home again. Back to reality.
America has succeeded in making first-class soldiers out of its second-class citizens. But what no one knows yet is that for these soldiers, there's no going back. In the years after World War II, America is entering an era of unequaled prosperity. And jobs, housing, manufacturing, even babies are booming. But whether you can participate fully in the American dream depends on which side of the color line you're on. Because for generations now, there have really been two Americas. By 1951, the state of Texas forbids interracial boxing matches. Florida doesn't allow white and black students to use the same edition of textbooks. In Alabama, a white female nurse can't take care of a black male patient. In one state, blacks and whites can't play checkers together. In 6 states, white and black prisoners can't be chained together. In 7 states, parks, playgrounds, pools, amusement parks, racetracks, pool halls, circuses, theaters, and public halls are segregated by law. And in 11 states, segregated schools are maintained even for the blind. Blacks and whites aren't allowed to share the same space, even if we can't see each other. And separate has never been equal.
We had an old saying, you can tell where white neighborhood ends and the black neighborhood begins because that's where the pavement run out.
Woke up this morning with my mind stay on Jesus. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
It just seemed like you were up against the impossible. All I've ever known all of my life was segregation.
Hallelujah, hallelujah.
And as far as I was concerned, you know, it would always be.
But this is the year that will begin to change. It's 1954.
Come on down this way now and see what's going to happen down here in front of the big show. Well, come on, we got a show going on out here. The people out here is waiting for you. Come on out here.
In Memphis, here at the 41st All-Black Tri-State Fair, you can find vegetable growing competitions, baby beauty contests, teen talent shows, and a parade through the center of town. For these people, and people like them all over the South, mixing with the white people isn't the goal. What they want is for their children to have the same opportunities that the white children have.
You get a different perspective about life when you go to a black school. You know, we didn't have running water, we didn't have lights, we used candles. And do you know, I can't ever remember getting a new school book. No, sir.
People used to pray for a better day and all. Being young, I couldn't see a better day coming. But our parents believed that something's gonna happen. And they believed that their education was the key.
A better day comes on May 17th, 1954, when the Supreme Court issues a ruling that would trigger the greatest social upheaval of the 20th century.
Good afternoon. A unanimous opinion of the Supreme Court. The court said, segregation in schools is a denial of the equal protection of the law. The Constitution prohibits the states from maintaining racially segregated public schools.
The court's ruling in Brown v. the Board of Education is a necessary first step towards an integrated society. But it also means that first step will be taken by children.
That morning when we were getting ready to go to school, my mother asked me what was wrong. And I told her I was scared. And she said, "What are you afraid of?"
Let me tell you something. I would have never sent my children on them. You hear me? And I tell you right now, the only way I'll send them down there to that school, I'll go every day with them. And I'll be sitting there with a pistol because if anybody touch one of them, I'll blow their brains out. And I meant it from my heart. I set the damn place on fire.
August 1955. The mutilated body of 14-year-old Emmett Till is pulled from the Tallahatchie River in Mississippi. He was beaten, tortured, and then killed for being a black boy who sassed a white woman. The men who did it will never serve a day in prison for their crime. Emmett Till's mother insists on an open casket funeral. 50,000 people come to view the body. Millions more see it when black-owned Jet magazine publishes the photos.
I first saw it in the magazine. The beaten, broken, bloated body. It almost felt like it was me. I could almost change places with him. There was not a lot of difference between what I saw as Emmett Till and what I saw as me.
Because of Emmett Till, an entire generation of Americans begins to wonder if they can even survive being black, especially in the Deep South.
Well, I tell you, brother, I imagine you read about Emmett Till getting killed up in Mississippi. And you know, that was it. That's when I left here in 55. I packed up my clothes and went to Chicago.
What people like H.J. Williams will learn is that a lot of times, when it comes to the way the Negroes are treated, the only difference between the North and the South is the weather. It's the 1950s, 9 decades after slavery, deep in Mississippi's cotton fields. While the sun is high in the sky, things look pretty much the same as they always have here. But that will change after dark.
Where did Blacksmith Entertainment?
Well, they always had them clubs. Yes, sir. That's where everybody used to love to go to party. For 2 days, we were the boss. We were in charge.
Juke joints like this one stay open for 2 days straight, selling homemade liquor, home-cooked food, live music, sometimes even a pretty girl. Come Coming here is a way to escape from the daily brutality that comes with being black in the Deep South. The only other way is to leave. For the better part of the 20th century, millions of black people pack up and leave behind all that they've ever known. If you're one of them, where you end up usually depends on where the train is headed. If you board in Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, or Virginia, you're headed east to Washington, Philadelphia, or New York. If you get on in Louisiana or Texas, you go to the West Coast, usually Los Angeles or Oakland. And if you're from Arkansas, Alabama, or Mississippi, you'll board the Illinois Central, headed for Cleveland, Detroit, or Chicago. That's the one they call the fried chicken special.
We left the South when I was 11. When we rode the train in an all-colored car. And I thought this was the greatest thing because now I'm in a car with all my people and they got the brown paper bag with the greasy chicken and the sandwiches and we're having a good time.
Colored passengers like Jim McFarland can't count on getting served in the diner cars. So they bring shoeboxes filled with fried chicken, hard-boiled eggs, and biscuits for the trip. And the further they get from the Mason-Dixon line, the more it tastes like freedom. Jesse Johnson came to Chicago from Mississippi.
When I got off the train in Chicago, a white policeman came up to me and started a friendly conversation. A white man. And I thought it was wonderful because I'd never had that experience in my life. A white man.
Of the 500,000 blacks who end up in Chicago, most settle along a 7-mile stretch on the city's south side. So many, they start calling it Bronzeville.
Get back home, ain't gonna live no. You know the damn below zero. Now there's one wrong,
Here, doctors, entertainers, and railroad porters live alongside housemaids and janitors. Everyone lives together here because there aren't many other places in the city where they're welcome.
It is a little different in Chicago. For example, they wouldn't come out in the bowl and talking about hanging Negroes and lynching and so on like that. But now, it's as much discrimination up north here as anywhere else. A black man is a black man regardless of where he goes. It's just like that.
No matter how far away the train takes them, they can't escape the South any more than they can escape being black.
My mother, what she would do is she would get the Chicago Defender newspaper and read for me the various stories. All these stories of brutality against black people in the South.
Northerners like Scott Smith remain connected to the South by blood and memories.
There was something deeper than I could understand that older people felt. It was about their experience in the South and what they knew was going on. Someone said something happened to somebody in Tennessee, some having somebody in Louisiana, some having somebody in Georgia, all over the place.
In the mid-1950s, blacks from down south read the Negro-owned Chicago Defender. They learned that 3 other black men were lynched in Mississippi the same year as Emmett Till. And more than 100 men in sheets raided the black part of Maplesville, Alabama, leaving 6 Negroes injured. And about the castration of a Negro handyman in Birmingham as part of a Klan ceremony. And then another story. This time, something was happening for black people, by black people.
Good evening. Most Negroes in Montgomery, Alabama are boycotting the city buses because a woman who refused to take a segregated seat was fined and arrested. The issue may generate as much heat as the Supreme Court ruling abolishing segregated schools.
What's happening here in Montgomery, Alabama in December of 1955 is part of a growing movement. Every day, they are preparing to do non-violent battle for civil rights in the streets and in the courts. It has dedicated organizations and inspirational leaders.
Let me have your attention just a minute, please. Just a minute. Now, let me say this to you. You don't not only have a right to be free, we have a duty to be free. Yeah. Because as long as you sit in the back, you have a false sense of inferiority. And so long as you let the white man sit in the front and push you back there, he has a false sense of superiority.
But the struggle for freedom will also happen spontaneously, individually, house by house, and family by family.
And now let's go to Levittown, a modern garden community, a community designed for modern living, designed to last a lifetime, a trouble-free lifetime.
Oh, it is attractive.
Yes, and it'll stay that way, too. That's what I like about it.
Here in Levittown, Pennsylvania, for a $100 down payment, young families can purchase homes in this brand new suburban development. It's a community that's been planned down to the last sewer grate and shrub. There are no more than 4 house models to choose from. No child ever has to cross a busy street to get to school. And no black families allowed. It's August 1957, and a new family just moved in on Deep Green Lane.
All right, anytime.
At 10:40 this morning, William Myers, his wife and baby, moved into this home here at 43 Deep Green Lane in the Dog Hollow section of Levittown. He is the first Negro to ever take up residence in Levittown. Now, up to this point, there have been no demonstrations, no crowds here. However, police are on hand, state troopers, about 3 cars of state troopers here, waiting for developments this morning here in Levittown. Mr. Myers, have you ever moved into an all-white neighborhood before?
No.
You haven't? Well, did you have necessarily an all-white neighborhood in mind, or was it just that you were looking for a house in any neighborhood?
I was looking for a house in any neighborhood.
Well, as far as I can define the word nigger means thief. It means undesired. It means that they're just not wanted around anywhere. They cannot be trusted.
Yes, sir.
Well, let's put it this way. If the Levittown is migrated in hordes of Negroes, which they have a right to come here, but if something that happens that way, pretty soon my neighbor will be having a Negro son-in-law or a daughter-in-law. How would that look?
How about you?
We don't want any violence here, and if the colored people will move out, it will be all over.
Well, you ought to get out. That's all I have to say. How about you?
It seems like all these state cops are up here protecting one colored man. What about us white people? How about giving us a little protection?
Mr. Myers, why did you decide to buy in Levittown? You knew at the time that it was an all-white, had been an all-white community.
I'm a veteran of the Second World War, and I feel as though that I have as much right as anyone to purchase a home of my choosing and a place of my own selection.
That same summer of 1957, another young family was also trying to cross the color line, but in a different way.
Mrs. Loving, how do you feel about what happened?
I think that marrying who you want to is a right that no man should have anything to do with. It's a God-given right, I think.
Mildred Loving lives in Central Point, Virginia. Just after the birth of her first child, she married the baby's father. And that's when her family's trouble begins.
You know, the white and colored went to school different, and they couldn't go in the same restaurants. I knew that. But I didn't realize how bad it was until we got married.
I wanna know, do you still love me?
Mildred and Richard Loving are quiet people. They aren't out to change the world. But in the eyes of the state of Virginia, their marriage is a crime. And it will remain so until 1967. When the Lovings take their case all the way to the United States Supreme Court and win.
I'd like to.
Whether or not they want to be, these families have become part of the struggle. We know today that they are on the right side of history. But they don't. Because for them, it's only the late 1950s. And that history is still being written. It's 1961 in Charleston, South Carolina. 100 years ago, the Civil War began here at Fort Sumter. Ultimately, 11 states broke from the Union and formed the Confederacy. Now those states are joining together again to celebrate the Civil War centennial. This reenactment is only one of the planned events. As part of this 4-year commemoration, you'll see grand balls, plantation tours, and thousands of costumed Confederate soldiers reenacting historic battles like Manassas and Andrews Raid. What you won't see here are Negroes, or any mention of slavery as the reason the Civil War was fought in the first place. Northern journalists who come down to cover the celebration find that for whites here, old traditions die hard.
Camera 2. Slating.
All right. I would like you to explain to us the workings of the South and the Southern people.
There's a lot of white people here that say this, that even the dumbest farmer in the world knows that if he has white chickens and black chickens, that the black chickens do better if they're kept in one yard to themselves, the white chickens do better if they're kept in a separate yard to themselves. They each do better under those conditions.
Now everybody just move out, move out.
Are you personally aware of prejudice in Birmingham?
I'll tell you, we have a good set of Negroes here, and they don't want to be disturbed. Of course, there are some getting some ideas, and that's all right. That's progress.
But for black Southerners, there is too little progress happening too late. One thing is clear. Any doors black people want open will have to be forced open.
A group of freshmen from Greensboro's all-Negro college wrote a new page of sit-in history. They seated themselves at a segregated lunch counter.
More than 400 federal marshals have been sent into Montgomery, Alabama after yesterday's violence, in which a mob attacked a group of Negro bus riders protesting segregation.
By 1962, 8 years have passed since the Supreme Court's ruling in Brown v. the Board of Education, and less than 2% of segregated school districts have experienced any integration at all. And the ones that have were often given no choice.
Today there were riots at the University of Mississippi. Federal troops used tear gas and fixed bayonets in an effort to quell the mob. 2 persons were killed, more than a score injured, 150 persons arrested. All of this so that one man might have an education.
As far as some white Southerners are concerned, if black people are unhappy here in the South, they can leave. One-way bus tickets to the north, along with $5 spending money, are being offered to Negroes in Shreveport, Louisiana, Montgomery, Alabama, and Macon, Georgia. But by now, there aren't too many black Southerners who still believe that the North is the promised land anyway.
What should he do? Ooh, it's a puzzling thing. Ooh, what should I do? I really want to know. Somebody's got to get up and tell me, yeah.
It's like hell to live up here. Well, the housing conditions is something terrible. The rats, the mice, the roaches. It isn't very pleasant, I can tell you that.
Here in the North, black Americans may have the same legal rights as white Americans, but housing discrimination confines them to slums, where up to 70% of young people are out of work.
We have a lot of problems here, and the majority of the stores that you have are all owned by white people, and we really don't have job opportunities.
The salaries are small, the rents are big. That's why you find people walking the streets trying to do things illegal and otherwise. The people wants to have something to hold on to, but they have nothing.
Nearly a century after the Civil War, America has failed on its promise to provide equality for all its citizens. And those citizens won't wait anymore.
If you're looking for a place where this oppression doesn't occur, basically, that's up north. In 1960, I wanted everything that I'd been denied. I wanted the job that the white man had. I wanted his woman. I wanted a white car. I wanted a house that was white and all of it. So I was on my way to doing it, you know, working. I'm on my way. I'm on my way up. And then in 1963, they bombed that church.
On what began as a quiet Sunday morning, a bomb exploded in a Negro church in Birmingham, killing 4 young girls.
They blew those girls up. My life passed in front of me. They didn't just blow up 4 girls. They blew up black.
White man, boy was reading the Bible. And the little boy said, Papa, the Bible said, love your neighbor. Do that mean a nigger?
So from there on, I'm not interested in the White House and the white woman and the white job, any of those things. I'm interested in fixing this injustice that's coming at us just because we're black.
Let me tell you something, honey. My father, he always said, a fish doesn't open his mouth, he would never get caught. You hear me what I'm saying?
Lord, I woke this morning, man, I'm feeling bad.
As far as these marches and all of that, I never demonstrated nothing. But my son told me, he said, Mother, it's a different era. Let me tell you something. Regardless of what you don't want, regardless of what I don't want, our children gonna do what they want to do.
Ever since emancipation, we had hoped for a better day. Now, we were demanding that America make good on its promise of equality.
It was time. The time has come. We just had a feeling it was a beginning.
To Americans who say, slow down, change takes time, the movement says, it has taken my father's time, my mother's time, my brothers and my sisters' time, my grandfather's and grandmother's time. How much time do you want for your so-called progress?
Birmingham's Negroes began this afternoon's protest against segregation with a parade of 25 school children. They carried signs, one reading, God is love.
You and I have to be right there breathing down their throat. Every time they look over their shoulder, we want them to see us.
If something isn't done, you will have a racial explosion, and a racial explosion is more deadly than an atomic explosion.
We intend to win this fight with love.
The March on Washington on one of the most historic days in the nation's history. Today has been remarkably peaceful and quiet. Only 3 arrests.
Congress passes the most sweeping civil rights bill ever to be written into the law, the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Civil rights advocates, they're under no illusions about this. They know that neither laws nor lawsuits change hearts.
Now here is a development. Tonight in Washington, the FBI announced the finding of 3 bodies near Philadelphia, Mississippi, where 3 civil rights workers disappeared a month ago.
Selma sprang overnight from an obscure southern town to the front pages of world newspapers.
With the outrage of Selma still fresh, we enacted one of the most monumental laws in the entire history of American freedom. The Voting Rights Act will ensure Negroes the right to vote.
Like Martin Luther King, I believe in none violence. On the other hand, I believe that our people should stop getting killed.
The first fatality after 3 nights of bloody rioting in a Negro neighborhood called Watts on the south side of Los Angeles.
Is this Negro who fights back a new Negro?
I think that the history books have deleted that Negro from American history. No, I don't think it's new at all.
Nobody's gonna make me afraid, for death is not the ultimate evil. The ultimate evil is not to have something that you believe in so strongly that you will die for.
In this summer of social unrest and increasingly violent confrontations, people are taking the talk of an armed revolution seriously, especially the police.
As more police arrived, the temper of the crowds grew worse. So did the temper of the police.
You shooting up our sons, trying to destroy the Negro scenes. But I tell you one thing, you're going to have to destroy us mothers too, because we're not going to stand for it.
There have been more incidents, and the troubles are as yet unresolved. It is generally believed that things will get much worse before they get any better.
What Dr. Martin Luther King called his beautiful dream was shattered tonight in Memphis, Tennessee by an assassin's bullet. In Memphis and in New York, in Boston, Raleigh, North Carolina, there are reports of angry reactions to the killing of Dr. King.
I think very simply that the greatest leader, or one of the great leaders, is dead. I'm afraid now that the civil rights movement is also dead.
I think it's a great mistake for anybody to go and kill Dr. King like this. The colored people should blame all white men. That's the way I feel about it.
I don't know. I think it's just going to be an all-out battle. So, I don't know. Everyone's getting ready, so it'll be pretty bad.
It's 1968. And now everyone, black and white, wonders how the races will ever come together, or if they even can. Over the next 4 decades, some of the hopes of the 60s will be fulfilled. Small gains are made in education, in politics, and income disparity, but not nearly as many as we had hoped. And then something shocking happens in November 2008.
It is Tuesday night, and you are looking live at Grant Park in the city of Chicago
and a celebration is what they are getting.
That crowd on its feet tonight there, tens of thousands of people.
And we have news, a seismic shift in American politics. An African American has broken the barrier as old as the Republic. You are looking at the 44th President of the United States, an election.
The fact is, there is complexity of race in this country that we've never really worked through. A part of our union that we have not yet made perfect. What's remarkable is not how many failed in the face of discrimination, but how many men and women overcame the odds. How many were able to make a way out of no way for those like me who would come after them. What we know, what we have seen, is that America can change. That is the true genius of this nation. What we have already achieved gives us hope for what we can and must achieve tomorrow.